So good to talk to you who were actually born in the year when I started, working. Maybe I would tell that little child that, hey, you should have dreams and you can have dreams, but some of those will come true. Otherwise, better ones will come through.
Someone who's going through this really challenging, tumultuous time, how do you help them comprehend this question? Am I doing the right thing?
Just intellectually understanding it is one thing, but to be able to understand it in spirit is really what counts. Keep all your dreams, keep all your aspirations, but make sure that you are having a good time right now. I was kind of against having a guru right from my childhood for whatever reason. I was going to remain outside, but she said, hey, come and sit on the last seat. And something crazy happened the moment Gurudev came in.
As I was researching for this episode, this guest that I have today, he's on the executive advisory board of multiple organizations. He has held the CHRO, the Global CHRO position for many. But what struck me was that on LinkedIn, the first role that he had shows up as it started in 1985. And that was the same year that I was born with. So to me, it's a very golden and beautiful opportunity to learn from someone who I deeply admire and I have met a few times. And what I see in this person is, who I'm going to introduce you to very soon, is that the higher this person got in their roles, in their responsibilities, the deeper they got in their soul. And that, hopefully, listeners, if you're seeking to learn from this kind of experience, then this is the right episode for you. Welcome, Aadesh. Looking forward to this conversation with you.
Hey, Utkarsh, thanks for the kind words. That's so shocking for me to hear this comparison, right? And it's so good to talk to you specifically and a podcaster in general who were actually born in the year when I started, you know, working. So this is just an amazing opportunity for me too.
Absolutely. And I'm pretty sure, Adesh, the listeners are looking forward to learning so much for you. My hypothesis is, and I don't know if you'll be honest to it or not, but my hypothesis is that we will today speak about leadership. We will speak about maybe happiness. Maybe we will also speak about how AI is transforming the HR world in your experience and eyes, because you've seen it evolve through so many changes in technology, in geopolitical situations, that I think this is another shift that you're observing. So I'm looking forward to learning all of that.
Same here. And, the question that you ask is really an opportunity for me to, you know, think deeply because every question has this opportunity for us to really reflect and contemplate.
Beautiful. Absolutely. So the first question that we start the podcast with, Adesh, is, if that 8-year-old little boy who did not know where life would take him and what would happen, and wherever that future lies, that 8-year-old young boy growing up comes and meets you right now at this stage and age at which you are, what kind of a conversation will emerge between the two of you?
Oh my God. Let me just go back quickly. So yeah, I was in this really small industrial town in Rajasthan, India, Khetri, district Jhunjhunu, and it was one of the largest copper mines in the country. My father was a mining engineer, and we shifted there when I was 1 year old. So this would be it would be totally crazy, Utkarsh, because at that time life was really simple, especially in the middle of nowhere town, which was actually in the middle of a desert. The whole colony and the industry plant there was surrounded by desert, and very beautiful, very simple people. And today we talk about AI. At that time, there was we had not even heard of a calculator. We would go on hikes on Sundays, sometimes on the mountains there, some Ravli, or sometimes in the fields. And when we would feel thirsty, the little mud channels that go through the agricultural fields for water irrigation, we would just simply put our hands there, take water, and drink from there. Or if you're going on hikes, we would find these, berries, big berries or small berries in Rajasthan. You call it bear or nasar.
Hmm.
You just pluck it from the bush and just eat it straight away, right? You can't think of doing those things today. So it's a totally different world, and even from the time I started working, things have totally changed. Right. At that time, you had to call the operator to dial long distance. You couldn't dial it, right? And you had to book a call. And from there, fax machines had just come, you know, etc. And from then on, I feel lucky to be a part of, all the changes that have happened in the world. So it's pretty uncanny to think of it like that.
Yeah, such simpler times, right? To drink water, and now you will be concerned about, is it contaminated? What's the AQI level in the air? What is happening to the water, and all of these things. But that 8-year-old Adesh, what would he say to you, or what would you say to him? I'm wanting to kind of go deeper into the conversation that might emerge.
Yeah. Let me quickly think about this.
Take your time.
Hmm. I think the little boy might ask me that, whatever journey you have had, um, would you have anticipated this? And maybe I'd ask that little boy, uh, do you already have some idea about, the journey that you want to undertake? Those are type of questions. And I don't remember whether it was at 8 or perhaps when I was 12 or 13. The only thing I wanted to be was to be a doctor,
Hmm.
right? And for the next few years, my uncles and my cousin sister who were doctors, they would, the only thing I would talk to them about was, medicine and medicine related stuff. And it just so happened that I just didn't get there. And for maybe a couple of years, I felt, hey, am I doing the right thing? But very quickly, that became a no problem at all. And when I look back today, sometimes I feel whatever happened was actually a better thing to do. So I think maybe I would tell that little child that, hey, you should have dreams and you can have dreams, but some of those will come true. Otherwise, even better ones will come through.
Love that. Love that. I always tell the listeners, Adesh, that they should have like a diary or a pen to kind of think through these things. Because what you just said, I think this question, and our listeners, Adesh, are between, say, 25 to 45. That's the maximum that we've seen. So I understand how this question, and even today, like for me, like I've done a few things in life, but this question, am I doing the right thing? I think there is not even a week when I don't ask myself, that is this the right thing to do? Why am I starting a podcast? And all these questions are very, very challenging, but also meaningful. And then what you just said, I think some dreams will come true, otherwise, some others will come through. I think to me, that's a very powerful statement. But how does, Adish, if you were to bring it to now, this current state that the world is in, how does a 30-year-old or 35-year-old answer these questions at this stage? Because it's like at a in a future time, we can reflect back and say how the dots connected. And Steve Jobs has his famous saying. But someone who's going through this really challenging, tumultuous time, how do you help them comprehend this question? Am I doing the right thing?
Yeah. See, this is I think this is a very important and philosophical question for our life. But there are no easy answers there. So just intellectually understanding it is one thing, but to be able to understand it in spirit is really what counts. And that happens slowly. Sometimes it can happen very quickly by accident, but sometimes you're going through the grind and getting the shine. So if a 30-year-old person has to look at it right now, I would say, hey, maybe this person has been working for a few years. I either already married with a small child, or maybe wanting to get married, maybe have as a life partner, and thinking about life in terms of what I want to become, what I want to gain, etc., etc. And I think keep all your dreams, keep all your aspirations, but make sure that you're having a good time right now. And the worry or the anxiety of whether you're going to get there or not is really not important, and that must not consume us, right? And I have a simple test, right? And when I teach the Art of Living Happiness course, I ask this question to people. I've asked this to several thousand people, and I haven't yet found a person who said yes, she doesn't agree with he or she doesn't agree with that. I said, see, go back 10 years and just try to remember everything that you wanted in life at that time,
Mm.
right? And one, two, three, four, whatever that is, and now think whether you've got it all. And most people have got that plus something more. Now, using logic or mathematics and extrapolation, why wouldn't the same thing happen in the future, right? And since I've asked this to thousands of people, I haven't yet found anybody whose experience is not this. It's a kind of a theorem that keep dreaming, but let it not consume you. Keep giving your best, but enjoy and be happy.
Yeah, very interesting. So keep living in the moment. Don't let the anxiety consume you. I think it's a very important fact. And I think how you're putting it, what I'm understanding is like the future will work it out, and you don't have to be really worried about the future. Uh, and I think I was since you spoke about art of living, I was listening to a video by Gurudev, and what he was saying was that I don't clearly remember what it was, but he was saying something of this sort that some people feel that the past that has happened was their destiny. And then the future that's going to come. No, so I think he said past has happened to them, but the future is what you feel like is the destiny. So past was a choice and future was a destiny, something like that.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it's the reverse, right? That the
That,
past has happened and you cannot do anything about it, let it go.
yeah.
But the future is still a choice. I think that was a very powerful idea.
Absolutely. Very powerful. Very, very powerful.
And how did this? So you spoke about being art of living teacher. How did this emerge into your professional experiences and lifetime? When did that happen? Maybe these breathing practices. What is it about just meditation overall? Like, what has been your experience? That how does that you think impacts a busy executive who's just wanting to build his career or her career?
The things that are most important for us in our lives, we have never been told anything about it.
What is, according to Aadesh, the definition of leadership?
There are two aspects of leadership, right? And this is not something any leadership program talks about. So I think self leadership is very, very essential.
But it's so hard to trust people easily. So, what has been in your experience over the 40 years of wonderful experience that you've had? What allows people to trust each other? Have you ever had the opportunity of meeting Sir Tata? What are a few actionables, tips? What can you share that they can kind of, starting maybe as soon as they've listened to this episode, they can put it into practice?
If you learn to this was more by an accident. My wife, we had moved to Gurgaon. Gurgaon was really 97 was really a town or a village, more or less. And we had moved from Delhi, and there was not much, to do other than work and all that. And my wife had her own independent business, and she was looking to do some trainings, etc. Because in the corporate world, you get a chance. In those times, there were no open programs that you could sign up. And somewhere she saw a poster, Art of Living program, and she was intrigued by it, and she called those people, and they said, hey, actually we have one course starting today in right in Palam where we used to live. And she just joined, right? And she really enjoyed it. And over the next several weeks, type of things that she described to me, I said, hey, this is just a wonderful thing. And so she found out, and I talked to one of the teachers in Delhi and said, hey, we want to do this for all our employees. So in the meeting, he said, hey, how can you recommend something to all your employees if you have not done it yourself? And I just landed up doing it. And I went with Vandana. I was kind of against having a guru right from my childhood for whatever reason, and she was going to go and be in a satsang with him. It was a Sunday. Our driver wasn't there, so, and she never used to like to drive. So I became the driver and went there, and I was going to be remain outside, but she said, hey, come and sit on the last seat. And something, 2 days later, I met her. crazy happened. The moment Gurudev came in and he had not even sat down, something shifted in me. And, basically I say, I actually want to do the Art of Living course with him. So it was like totally unexplainable and somewhat irrational. That's how the foray happened. And
Interesting.
from the time I did the course, I have remained to be a student, practice every day, and, pursuit of the practices and learning.
Yeah, yeah, fascinating. And I've had the joy of being in a class that Vandaji took, I think, virtually many years ago. So I resonate deeply with that. Uh, what is it about? And I'm kind of zooming out. What is it about? Maybe these breathing practices. What is it about? Just meditation overall. Like, what has been your experience? That how does that you think impacts a busy executive who's just wanting to build his career or her career?
Mm. See, if you see, go back in your life and I go back in mine, and that is true for almost all of us. The things that are most important for us in our lives, we have never been told anything about it in terms of learning, right? So, for example, whatever we want to do in life is basically because we want to be happy. But do you ever remember being taught about happiness at all, right?
No, none.
So, if you see the ancient practices and scriptures or whatever of India, were basically about finding a meaning in life and being happy ultimately. So, by doing what I discovered to my pleasure, because I had also no idea, we did it by accident. The teacher forced me that, hey, if you want to recommend it to so many people, you want to do it yourself. And like when I did the Sudarshan Kriya, it was really magical. You know, in a way, I actually didn't have any challenges in my life. No problem, nothing. Everything was going so well. But still, I felt some fountain of change and happiness and some type of, totally different type of joy. And then the teacher got a promise that, hey, you have to practice for 40 days. That's the Guru Lakshana.
Right.
And we did it. And then, it was so good. It just kept going on and on and on. So I think I wouldn't say there's a good connection between people who are busy, but it is actually an essential thing for you to be successful in the professional world. To, just the way you brush your teeth, you need to do something for your emotional and spiritual cleaning,
Yeah. Yeah.
mental cleaning.
Yeah, that's a very good example that like you brush your teeth for the hopefully whole of your life. And I have two young kids who I've had challenges to tell them like why brushing your teeth is important. But you do that over your entire life, and if you don't do it for maybe 1 or 2 days, your teeth are not going to fall out. But you still get back to it because it's important for your hygiene, right? And I think yeah, that's what you're saying. Some level of meditation practice or a spiritual practice or that cleansing. I think the word that you use, Adesh, I deeply resonate with that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. If you were to shift our attention now to, and I was reading this article by you, which I really love. You've had experience of working with leaders, people, and 15 years, I think, if I remember correctly, 15 years as the CHRO at Tata Communications. What what is according to Adesh the definition of leadership?
Yeah. See, I think, it's really a very, what to say, deep and broad subject. So there are two aspects of leadership, right? And depending on the time that you want to spend on this, I will cover both of them.
That's true.
One is obviously leadership, and the other one is I call self leadership. So, see, leadership, classical meaning is that someone who has the ability to achieve things working with people, who has a vision, who can build relationships, somebody who can do critical thinking and strategy, and not just for himself or herself, but also for the organization team, really help achieve stuff, right? Someone who's a good communicator, has a good presence, that type of thing. And within that, you know over time we all keep learning from our own experiences, right? And basically we are really standing on the shoulders of other people who came into our lives, right? And we may derive some meaning out of it. That may be our choice or maybe our destiny, hard to say. So what I think is a good leader is, first of all, needs to be a good human being, right? So I feel that being trustworthy is the most important thing in leadership. So if you're working with a new person or new persons, how do you gain your trust with them, and then how do you maintain it? So being trustworthy and remaining trustworthy is the most important thing. And I think the second is, when people look back after they spend time together with you, they should feel two or three things, right? One is that this person always had my back, was thinking about my success. Right. I think the second is that I always had great opportunities to learn and grow. And the third is that this person did everything that he or she could to help me develop, even if it meant being critical or being using some amount of directness or force. So, and through whatever means you choose for your definition of leadership, you are really able to not just achieve goals for the organization, for your team, but also help people develop. So, everybody is a leader, but can they keep growing as a leader? So that's really how I think about leadership.
Got it. So that to me is what we are speaking about. So you divided leadership into two aspects. One is the self leadership, and then there is leadership itself, which you spoke about trust, and we can go deeper into each one of them. And then a leader should be able to make the other person feel that the leader has my back, gives me opportunities to grow, and does everything that they can to help me develop. So that's one aspect, and I'll go deeper onto each one. But now this idea of self leadership, what does that stand for, Adesh?
So if you look at your life or my life or life of people that you know, they have a job to do, and job could include being an entrepreneur, right? And the definition that I gave you is primarily applicable to their work.
Hmm.
But if you look at their whole life and ask people what are the most important things on their mind right now, job may be number one or definitely in top five. But the other things that they would be worried about is, am I happy or not? Number two, do I have good health? Number three, as human beings, we have a propensity for affinity, right? Do we have good relationships? So the problems in life of people are, if you ask me, only four: job and money and resources. Number two, am I happy, excited? Or two, number three, good relationship and health. So the definition of leadership doesn't address anything other than career and maybe resources and money. The other three categories are not addressed at all. So, and unfortunately, they are not even taught anywhere. Yeah. Right. Like after working for 40 years, this is not something any leadership program talks about. So I think self leadership is very, very essential. And that's what provides completeness in your life. So it's really not either or, it is leadership and self leadership together. That's what makes your life fuller and happier.
Fuller and happier. I got stuck on those words. So that makes life fuller and happier when you have leadership and self leadership. And I love how you divided all the challenges that we face as human beings into four big buckets. One is the job and the money slash resources. Next is happiness. Would it be okay for me to use the word fulfillment also with it? Happiness and fulfillment?
Yeah, happiness, fulfillment, absolutely.
Joy. And then relationships are critical, whether that's at work, whether that's in your personal life, and then your own health. Because if the health is not doing well, then every other bucket starts to fall apart. As I look at, maybe let me just go deeper on this idea between self leadership and leadership. Do you think it comes like the egg and the chicken theory? Which comes first, or which comes after? Like what's the relationship between the two? Is what I'm asking.
So I think, they're like two sides of the coin.
Beautiful.
If the coin is our life, there are two sides of the coin. Uh, you know, Without the two sides, there's no coin. So it's really not either or, it's and. The combination is what makes it powerful.
Beautiful. I think what I'm going to recommend to listeners is like to really take this home. They should actually like have a coin that with them. On one side they can always write leadership, which is of everything that you do, almost like an external world, including work. But this idea of self leadership, which takes you more deeper into your own life, relationships, happiness, health, and job and money. then you spoke about this idea, Adesh, of leadership, and then the core ingredient I think you spoke about there was trust. But it's so hard to trust people easily. So, what has been in your experience over the 40 years of wonderful experience that you've had? What allows people to trust each other?
Mm. See, I think this is again such a deep subject and somewhat abstract that it's very hard to define it. You feel it more than you can define it.
Right.
So I think trust develops gradually, right? So it's like two stones coming together. Uh, they may not have any place, only one point to connect. But as they spend more time together, they change their shapes from the point of contact to where there's a larger contact. Is the simile that comes to my mind, and I don't remember giving this simile earlier before, so there may be something in it. So, for example, when you and I first met, we are primarily talking about work, correct? And work will help develop respect. If you're good at your work, that's what I experience, then I will respect you for your knowledge, for your expertise, all that. When you add a bit of feeling to it and that feeling becomes positive, I think that's when trust develops. And that feeling develops through personal non-work interactions, right?
Yeah.
I share about myself as a person to you, you share, we exchange notes, and then there's a certain amount of consistency that needs to happen, right? Which means every time my actions are principle based, they're not, there's not much difference between what I say and what I do. And whatever I do, and whatever I say, I keep doing consistently. And it may, what I do may be different from what you do for the same thing. But if you see consistency, that's the third dimension. And perhaps there may be something more, but these are the three things that come to my mind.
Love it. Love it. I think this is very, very helpful because what we're saying is that if you're in a workplace or even in your personal life, if you show up doing what you're saying you will do, that's going to build trust. So do that over time. Consistency comes in. And whatever your actions are, whatever you're doing, I think the what you make the other person feel, that also becomes an important part of this equation, which then leads to trust, which then leads to better leadership.
Yeah.
Got it. In your experience, Adesh, and I don't know why this question came up in me because to me, like I all I've seen you at is data communication. So, and I was speaking to someone that is priming me this question. Have you ever had the opportunity of meeting Sir Data?
Actually, I met him. I saw him from a distance. So there used to be, and there still is, this annual conference of leaders. It used to be about three-fourths of a day earlier
Hmm.
when I had joined Tata Group at that time, and then for the last few years, it's like a two-day event. And I saw him from close quarters, but I never had the opportunity to meet him. It was towards his end of tenure of as a chairman of Tata Group.
Great, man. Absolutely. I was speaking to a coachee in the US, and if I ever have to give an example of great leadership, I just use Ratan Tata, and I know people will resonate. And I've never, almost, I can easily say never, I've seen someone who would disagree with that thought. Like for other leaders, you have these buckets. For Steve Jobs, some people love him, some people don't love him, and some even hate him. But for Sir Ratan Tata, it's like there's this point blank love is all I've seen.
See, and I'll tell you, uh, when I joined Tata Group in 2010, I used to, for some international events, you go and, yeah, either you're a speaker or attending some big conference, and you know during the informal get together, when over tea you run into somebody, and I've run into Fortune 500 CEOs or chairmen, and when I they may not have heard of Tata Communications, but when I say Tata, they say, "Oh, we met Mr. Tata. What a great man he is."
Yeah.
You know, so he was larger than, his persona was larger than the Tata Group, and I was always, would say, taken aback with pleasure hearing such reverence in their being about Mr. Tata.
Yeah, and I think it boils down to what we are just speaking about, Adesh, because you see him with those actions all the time. Like I'm still like still saying as if he's right here with us, and I know he's not, but still feels like he's here. So he would consistently show up with the same level of empathy, the same level of love, the same level of just this love, not just for humanity, even for animals. So I think you see that feeling really deeply resonate with everyone across the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there are at least two people who were his, part of his office, for many years, are those friends of mine, and they corroborate this. They've spent hours and hours with him over several years. So he is like that.
Yeah, yeah, powerful. We're speaking about leadership and self leadership. So I read one of this article that you wrote, Adesh, and it stayed with me. So you said leadership in that. I'm reading through that. For you to be a leader, you need to imagine like an artist, envision like a scientist, think like a business person, solve problems like an engineer, and be a great human being. Can we
Yes.
maybe just go through this one by one? Like when you say as a leader, imagine like an artist, what does that really mean? Yes, AI can do a lot, but AI cannot do everything. So what's your perspective? How are you seeing this very rapid evolution that we've seen in the last, I think, 12 months from the moment OpenAI came and what's happening right now?
So through AI, you can create a hyper program on demand for every employee who wants to pursue it. So it really becomes employee's choice. I think the second part is career development on demand. So just imagine that, and when I say imagine, we already implemented it. What AI has enabled is to be able to continuously learn every moment, which was not possible 10 years ago.
Why do we also hear a lot of fear of AI, Adesh? What's your perspective on that?
See, for example, if if you want to do something meaningful, it would not necessarily be what somebody else has given you as an assignment. So you will have some type of purpose, some type of vision, some type of ambition to do something, right? Create an impact. So, it's like an artist. They start on a blank slate and magically create something, right? So you just need to have that imagination about making a difference, how you're going to make a difference. So that's how. And I had written this on a piece of paper a few years ago, and I doodled a lot, so I scanned it and put it in my doodles. And when I came across it several times, but then suddenly I said, hey, maybe i should I should just post something about it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And this is it's a very holistic way of looking at leadership, right? It's not saying that oh cannot be creative. It's not saying that you cannot be a problem solving. It's encompassing everything. And then when you at the end, I think almost like signed it off by saying be a great human being. That's like the seal that just completes it. And then how does one envision like a scientist as a leader? Like where is the connection there?
So scientists have some type of hypothesis, mm, right? I've read a lot about science. I don't claim to know science, but I read a lot. But some scientists have spent their entire lives working on one theory or one hypothesis. Take for example, I think Gregory Mendel. He was a scientist, but he was also a priest in a church. And through the garden that they had in the church, he and by cross pollination, this that, you know he spent his entire life solving one one hypothesis. So you have to envision, right? If you look at the biggest scientists, they envision something and then they pursue it,
Yeah.
keep pursuing it.
Yeah, yeah, fascinating. I mean, it takes a lot. It's like how when we talk about successful entrepreneurs or leaders, they're focused on this one big idea and they'll use all their effort and resources to solve that problem. So that deeply resonates. And then thinking like a business person, it is somewhat clear, but I'd love your commentary on it.
So a business person is doing actually almost all the things that are there in the you know that 5 list, but they are bringing it together.
Mm.
Right? They're doing operations. They have a team. They will run it. They will sell it. They have to do it in a way that makes money, because without money, business is not going to survive.
Right.
And so that's something which is very essential. It brings everything together. Without that, you could pursue things, but they may not create that big an impact that's possible for you to create.
Yeah, fascinating. And then solving problems like an engineer, that's
Yeah,
what engineers find joy in.
absolutely. And if you really see, everything that we're trying to do is a problem that needs to be solved.
Correct.
Ev- Problem need not be an issue, right? If you start seeing every issue as a problem and then think logically about how to break it down, how to solve it, everything can become easy, right? So, irrespective of what your role or function that you're in, you can still solve problems like an engineer. So, you know, I think one of the key goals that I had, the reason I posted, it when it came to me, I had no reason. It just, came. First two, three came, and then I added one or two more. But the reason I posted this is very different. That, see, based on the job that we do, the role that we do, we label ourselves with that role. And that creates a total limitation of what we can do then. Right. So this definition of leadership, takes away the label.
Yeah.
Irrespective of what you're doing, you can do all of this. And then actually do your job even better.
Yeah. The labels are what are limiting people, and that's
Yes.
where we don't do our best. We don't reach that highest potential that we speak about. But we kind of touched upon the idea of self leadership, and I know some of the listeners might still be thinking about that because it's a relatively newer concept, because we talk about leadership in terms of just leadership. Now, if you were to make it like a little bit more actionable, Adesh, and yes, we all need balance in those four buckets, right? The resources, the happiness, the relationships, and the health. For one to strengthen their self leadership, what are a few actionable tips? What can you share that they can kind of, starting maybe as soon as they've listened to this episode, they can put it into practice?
Yeah. So since I'm not working full time now, I can spend some more time. So, my wife and I, Vandana and I, have started recently a series called a workshop on self leadership, breath, happiness, and success. So that's a 90-minute workshop. It's complimentary. And basically, if you learn to breathe with awareness, it you realize that when you breathe with awareness, it's like, you know, kite is like a mind. Its nature is to flit here and there. And if you see thread as a breath, by tugging on the thread, you can keep the kite where you want the kite to be, right? And we do this, experiment of 3 or 4 minutes in the workshop. It's an experiential workshop.
Mm.
And people say, using breath, I can drop the past and the future. And, when you're in the present moment, you experience the present moment, there is only peace there.
Yeah.
There is only happiness there, right? So in 5 minutes, people can experience it. And then, that's what the Simple Art of Living course is about, that you have also done.
Mm.
That in, 25 or 30 minutes of practice of what you have learned every day can help you to keep one part of what I described as self leadership.
Yeah.
And if you see, that's the foundation. When you are at peace and you are happy, people who come in contact with you also experience that. See, only a lit lamp can light other lamps.
Correct.
So only a happy person will rub happiness off in the other person. If a person is depressed and kind of complaining, going through some phase, and none of us want to spend too much time with that person,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
relationships get positively impacted because of that.
Absolutely.
For
100%.
example.
Yeah. Love it. I think this is such a, and it's so easily available to us, Adesh. Like the breath,
Absolutely.
we're all, and I think the sometimes I share that the difference between we're respirating the whole time because we're not aware of it, and as soon as we become aware, that becomes breathing.
Absolutely.
And that's
That's
a,
a great way to put it.
yeah.
And Utkarsh, all our education today is about science and logic, right? Now, in the last few years, there are about 100 research papers available on the benefits of meditation, Sudarshan Kriya,
Yeah.
breath, pranayam, from the best universities in the world.
Yeah.
So, if you're looking for proof, there are two things. One is, you do this few minutes experiment yourself and maybe do a course which is a little longer,
Yeah.
and then you want to convince yourself logically, read those papers, right? But the like they say, the proof of the pudding is in eating, right? Like, if you experience it yourself, nobody can describe you how good a gulab jamun is,
Absolutely.
right? Until the time you taste it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think
100%.
experimenting it, diving into it, swimming in it is really what is very, very important.
Wow.
And there's you mentioned a few minutes ago, this what's your recommendation to people who are very busy, right? So I've heard of a story of Gautam Buddha, and he said that everybody must do meditation once a day, but if you're very busy, do it twice a day.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, love it. And I think the simplest, I think what listeners can really do is, we show up to social media, and I talk to so many people who are going through that doom scrolling challenge, who are unable to stop themselves because they feel that gives them entertainment, that gives them dopamine or whatever they're seeking. But there's no proof that there is actual dopamine being released after you've scrolled Instagram or Facebook or YouTube for 15 minutes, but you still do it every day as a creature of habit. I think the easiest challenge is just show up for 5 minutes, maybe 10 is what I was about to say, but let's make it even low risk. For 30 days, show up for 5 minutes and just sit there and breathe. If you cannot do a course, if you cannot think of like a deeper guru or a practice of meditation, just show up for 5 minutes, just breathe for those 5 minutes for 30 days. And if it does not help, then stop doing it. But if it does, then continue.
See, happiness is a skill that can be learned,
Love that.
and every skill, that expertise that we have, we had to practice it by repeating it,
Hmm.
right? So it's not like doing a session like this is not like it's like a trailer,
Correct.
right? But if you truly want to bring it into your life, then you have to do something every day. Like, you have to brush twice a day at least, right? You take a shower once a day at least, sometimes twice. So, like, people who exercise, they have to exercise a few times a week.
Yeah.
Right? It cannot be that, hey, I exercised last year and I'm going to do it again this year, right? So why, if the four things that I talked about are so important, you know, why would we not spend time on it?
Yeah.
Is really the fundamental question. And the way you put it about social media, 5 minutes out. When at the end of the art living course, when people say, hey, how are you going to take out 25-30 minutes every day? So this is what I tell them, that, hey, 5 minutes, everybody spends some time on news, right? And it doesn't matter how much news you never know enough. So reduce 5 minutes from there, reduce 5 minutes from your sleeping, reduce 5 minutes of, watching TV, and 5 minutes from something else. And that's it. You got your 25-30 minutes.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So if something is important in your file, you need to prioritize it. You can't say I'm busy.
Yeah.
And like nobody, the type of roles that I've done, it's like, we had presence in 40 countries, customers in 200 countries. My team itself was spread over a 15-hour time zone. The role, something or the other, is going on in some country all the time, right? Like, for people who used to say, hey, I'm too busy, at least, who knew me professionally, I would say, hey, if I can find time to do it, is it justifiable in your mind for you to say that you're busy?
Correct. It's a
They
good
would
question.
laugh at it.
It's a good question to ask. I know some of the people that you worked with. I'm going to call them and check with them, but I'm pretty sure they'll say that. This conversation, Adesh, we've spoken about leadership and self leadership, but it will be incomplete if we were to not discuss AI. When you started this conversation, you shared about how you were in those on those hikes in your hometown in Rajasthan, and you would drink that water, and there was no concept of AI, not even a calculator. But I think what was still there was human intelligence, and I think that still is here. So I just want to understand from your perspective. You've seen COVID, you've seen recessions, you've seen uh, technology changes over the last 40 years in your role, right? And where I'm coming from is I see a lot of memes about everything in the world, but I see a lot of memes spoken about the HR function. But to me, if it is not the people, then who's going to get you the profit? Yes, you need technology, but people will build that technology. If there'll be bugs, people will fix those bugs. And yes, AI can do a lot, but AI cannot do everything. So what's your perspective? How are you seeing this very rapid evolution that we've seen in the last, I think, 12 months from the moment OpenAI came and what's happening right now? So what's your viewpoint of the world and how it's evolving, especially for the people function?
Mm. So actually, it has the potential to totally transform how HR is, right? So since you're using HR as a specific thing, let me use one of the concepts of HR, which is quite important and well known: the high potential hyper program, right? And you can read books and articles about it that have been written in the last 30-40 years. They talk about figuring out how to select high potential people and then how to develop them into senior leaders over time, right? And typically companies who have run these programs would choose 25, 30, 40 people every year and like that. Now imagine a company which has 50,000 employees or 25,000 employees, and they have this hyper program. Two things have changed, right? There are two issues with this concept today. One is that nobody is thinking about working for a lifetime type of a situation or very long in the company, any company. Number two, over a period of 10, 15, 20 years, right, typically over which these hyper programs would run, too much changes today compared to when these programs were envisaged. And the second problem is doing something for 40 people is something which is companies need. But from if you see the employees need, every employee desires to have it. So through AI, you can create a hyper program on demand for every employee who wants to pursue it. So it really becomes employee's choice, right? So there are there are two or three main components of this. One is you create learning on demand. So we went live with what we used to call as a project LearnFlix, inspired by Netflix, learning on demand, right? Rather than streaming or entertainment on demand. We went live with it in April 2017, right? It didn't really have an AI at that time, but 4 or 5 years ago, we brought some amount of intelligence in that. And what that means is you build an ecosystem where anybody can learn anything at any time at the speed that they want, when they want, from where they want, etc. Just the way entertainment happens today. Once you do this, things totally magically change. People are learning stuff that they may not have learned otherwise in a traditional L&D management type of a situation where you do some training need identification, you say this type of a role for this category of people, job, family, roles, levels, and all that. Now everything is available to everybody, and people will pursue their own journeys, right? And what we saw was that within the first 3 years of launching this, the learning days per employee per year more than doubled,
Oh wow.
and 90% in-person training shifted to 90% digitally delivered training in 3 years. Wow. Right. And by the time I retired from Tata Communications a few months ago, we were just short of 10 days of learning per person per year. And when we launched it, it was 3.5. Right. That's
All three times.
yes, almost 3 times. And the budget that we had for learning remained more or less the same. So if you see the perhaps the total learning volume of in the company, right, all the training days put together, perhaps multiplied by 9 or 10 times with the same cost, because there's so much freemium content available today.
Right.
You can leverage that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's one part of this hypo on demand. I think the second part is career development on demand. So just imagine that, and when I say imagine, it's we already implemented it.
Yeah.
That every employee, when they log in into what we used to at Tata Communications called Talent Central, they would see 4 different pathways, options. One is if they want to move horizontally, vertically, or diagonally, and they pursue any of those options, it'll open up the jobs that are open for which there's a match with them. Right? So suppose you are in a particular job family, but you want to go into some adjacent job family or some other job family. That's a diagonal path at a higher level. You click on that, it'll show you, say, 2 jobs for which there's a match, and you double click on it. It'll show you the areas where there's a gap between what that role expects and what your experience is today, okay, what the skills are today, and you double click on those. It takes you to the learning and intervention that you can do to bridge those gaps.
Got it.
Right? And you can pursue it, start right then and there. Now, once this is available to people, people are going to use it in my right ways.
Yeah.
Right? And depending on what is their situation, what is their aspiration, how much energy they can put, they'll pursue it in different ways. Now, the more they pursue learning, the more the system is continuously watching this, right?
Right.
The gaps keep reducing. Now, if you see from the point of view of a manager, they are seeing the one's complement of this. One complement means the other side of it. They're seeing the perspective from the other side, which means the moment one person moves out from my group, either outside the company or into some other group, system knows that this person is moving. It starts showing me people who can join that. Right? It could be internal person, it could be external person, and so you are now created things in motion that when you need, things are available for you on demand. If you're a manager, and you can pursue as an employee whichever career journey that you want to pursue without really taking anybody's permission. And it's a marketplace. If you are able to find a job and take a career journey that you want to pursue, hey,
No one can
you
stop
know,
you.
everything is available to you. And all of this is possible only because of AI, right? Because logically, you could have implemented this 10 years ago. We tried it and we implemented it. It was rules based, and it becomes obsolete pretty fast.
Yeah.
Right? Because the actual events that are happening make what your knowledge based on which you made the rules obsolete pretty quickly. So what AI has enabled is to be able to continuously learn every moment, which was not possible 10 years ago. So totally changes, right? And if you see employee experience, you have worked in that area directly or indirectly quite a bit. Ultimately, employee experience is what? There are 5 or 10 things that are most important to employees, right? 2 of them I mentioned, right? They'll be in the top 3.
Yeah.
For that, you don't have to meet anybody, talk to anybody. So the job of the HR is to create products that make a difference, that solve real problems, and which means it'll create business impact, it'll create employee impact, and it'll create manager impact. That's what the job of HR is.
Yeah. So succinctly put, Adesh, this final thought, and thank you for sharing all of that, because it's really important to have this as an open conversation, that the role of HR is to actually do that business impact. It's strategic, so build products that are going to serve the needs, and then ultimately the employee needs to be impacted. And if you can do all of that, then there's infinite value that you're building. Then why do we also hear a lot of fear of AI, Adesh? What's your perspective on that?
See, the fear of anything big that is coming, which has the potential to disrupt, they will always be fear, right? And suppose somebody says that, we're going to get an earthquake on this particular date, there is going to be fear.
Yeah.
Or, you are not old enough to perhaps remember it. The Y2K issue became a big issue in the business and computing world. The dates were stored only as 2 digits, and suddenly when 4 digits, it's going to become 00. Nobody knew what's going to happen. So there was a lot of fear. The amount of time and money people spent. So there was a lot of preparation done, but basically it didn't really crash anything per se. Right? So there is always fear of something big, which is new. So I think fear is natural, and I think the only way to deal with fear is to understand. There are only two ways to deal with it, right? As far as I can think, one is understand more about it. Right? So put your toe in the water. Otherwise you'll always be afraid of the sea. And then you put a foot there, and then you at least go till knee deep. And if you want to, keep doing more and more, right? Then stay there. And the second is keep learning how you could use it to make your job better. Just do those things, and the fear will reduce significantly. If you're going to stay on the sidelines and just be a receiver, then depending on your personality type, you might just be continuously worried about this.
Yeah.
Or if you're like a totally happy-go-lucky person, then you may not be worried about it, but then it could come and impact you.
That's good advice. So and this applies not just to AI. I think I'm just zooming it out for our listeners that when there's fear, either you expose yourself to that fear slowly, tip your toes into the water and then start to experience it, and then go knee deep, and then learn about it. Because if you're standing on the sidelines, you'll always be worried. Whether you're standing on the sidelines because of that worriness or slash anxiety, or you're standing on the sidelines just because you feel like this is not going to touch me, or be you're kind of happy go lucky. Uh, Beautiful. Thank you, Adesh. As we now get into this state of wrapping up, I've filled about 2 A4 sheets with the notes, which is very helpful to me always to summarize this conversation. But as we get into this closure, if now I were to nudge you to think about Adesh, that future self, Adesh from 18, 20, 30 years from now, since you shared your age, that's where the math was happening in my head. But that 80-year-old Adesh, and if that Adesh were to come to you right now, what advice would he have for you?
So, I would say keep doing what you're doing and do more of that. So, today, and this is really, we all are a product of our experiences and what we chose to do with their experiences, and maybe how we were wired, right? So it's really not to do with us per se, right? These are the journeys that happened. People came into your life, situations came into your life, and I would say the karma theory. So for the last few years, many years, obviously you had one big portion of your life was a full time job, but within that, I was practicing self leadership, right? And uh, I was doing a lot of community service. I would say in the last 25 years, maybe depending on time, 10 to 40 hours a month of community service. So that's what I'm doing today, right? So I am associated with many companies, really helping them with their product strategy and the growth strategy. These are tech companies. Most of them are in the AI area, and they are HR related. One of them is health related, and spend time there. Number two, I continue to teach our living courses, and I talked to you about this workshop that we do. And the other thing that I do is that anybody who wants to talk to me, I say, yeah, I'm available. right? So I do these conversations with anybody who wants to do, and very very lucky to have amazing family, extended family, and lots of friends. I have 4,000 contacts in my on my phone, and I dare say that if you look at, I'm in touch with almost all of them, one way or the other. So focus on you know health, happiness, service, relationships, more and more. Basically, keep having a good time.
Amazing, amazing. That's such a beautiful summary to this episode. So listeners, keep doing what you're doing and do more of it. And I think if you've listened to the whole episode, it it beautifully summarizes the way Adesh has put it, that focus on the resources, the happiness, the relationships, and the health while you build whatever you're building for yourself, because there's joy in the moment, and then there's the long term also that you're constructing. um, if I'm grateful, Adesh, for you to be here and to share all your wisdom and thoughts and have this open conversation. Truly appreciate you for your time.
And for me, just a great time that you and I spent together. The joy the spend of joy the joy of just talking and discussing various subject itself is really a big one for me, Utkarsh. So
Thank
thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, do not forget to share the episode with people who might resonate with this. And then if you're on YouTube, then you know the drill: subscribe button, like, comment, and let's get this episode and this wisdom go viral. Till next time, this is Utkarsh signing off. That's a wrap for today's episode of the Ignite Neurons podcast. If you found value in this, here's what I recommend. Take out a paper or a diary and just put down one actionable, one thing that you can change about your life because you listen to this podcast. I'd really appreciate if you could share that in the comments below, because I'd love to see how it's impacting you or not. If you're on YouTube and watching this, then like, share, and subscribe, and please make this wisdom go viral. And if you're someone who loves your podcast on the go, then Spotify and Apple Podcasts are your go-to places, or wherever you're listening to this, just like, share it with a friend, and leave a comment, because I'd love to engage, love to have a conversation with you. Until next time, till we meet again, keep those neurons ignited, stay curious, keep learning, be someone who embraces a growth mindset, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.